Now, I think for a lot of us Star Wars fans, especially for those of us who are maybe a little older and have sort of seen the whole evolution of the industry, video games have been a huge part of the experience of being a fan and have offered just as many, if not many more actually, fond memories and enjoyment than anything else in regards to Star Wars. I mean, my personal experiences go all the way back to playing The Empire Strikes Back on the Atari 2600, and then I've played nearly, but not all, Star Wars games since then, and there's almost too many to remember off the top of my head. But you have games like Super Star Wars on the Super NES, Episode 1 Racer, the Rogue Squadron games, Republic Commando, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, the original Battlefront series, The Force Unleashed 1 and 2, and well, you get the point. There's been a lot of great games, and I'm really just scratching the surface here. In fact, in the not too distant past and under LucasArts, we usually got multiple great Star Wars games each and every year, but that was before the dark times, before Disney purchased Lucasfilm and almost immediately shut down LucasArts, which also promptly ended development on the game Star Wars 1313, which would have seen players exploring the lower levels of Coruscant as Boba Fett, which yeah, sounds pretty cool to me. But if that wasn't bad enough, exclusive rights for developing Star Wars games was then given for the next 10 years, or at least initially for the next 10 years, to EA of all companies, easily one of, if not the most despised companies in the industry, and that move was arguably, and this is saying something, one of the worst moves Disney has made with the Star Wars franchise thus far, in my opinion. And that's not necessarily because EA has made horrible games. In fact, I dare say all of them turned out pretty well, or at least would in the long run. And I have to say long run because of the 4 major console or PC releases they've had, 2 of them, the Battlefront games, felt like they were unfinished or lacking content upon release. Especially the first Battlefront game where you had to spend an extra $50 to get a season pass, which almost doubled the price of the game, just to get the rest of the game via 4 DLCs that would be released over the next year or so following the initial release. And then of course we had the microtransaction controversy around the second Battlefront game, which led to, I believe, the most downvoted, at least at the time, post in the history of Reddit, where EA tried to explain their stance on the situation, and they eventually did cave. They did take the microtransactions out of the game just before the launch of it, which you might say is praiseworthy, but I'm not sure if them all but being forced by their consumers to make a change at the risk of the game's launch being a flop is something we should really give them credit for, especially since they continue their predatory practices of microtransactions in other games like Madden Football and FIFA Soccer. And though I haven't tried either of those games in years now, I'm told by those who do still play them they're almost the same game each and every year, that they offer very few new features and haven't innovated in forever. And speaking of microtransactions and not innovating, I should probably mention the game Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which falls under EA as well. And it was a game I played for years and only recently quit because it just felt like it became the ultimate money grab and wasn't offering anything really new in terms of gameplay. Not that it wasn't always a money grab, that's what all mobile games are, but at least early on it felt like we consistently got new features and raids and so on. But anyway, here before I keep going on about that game, the other disappointing part about EA having exclusive rights to Star Wars beyond their unscrupulous business practices was how few games we actually got. There were years that went by with no new games at all. Which, yeah, might make me sound like a greedy and impatient Star Wars fan perhaps, but after getting used to, again, usually multiple new games each and every year in the LucasArts era, it just felt like EA had a sort of chokehold on Star Wars games, or just didn't know what they were doing, and that Disney hadn't known what they were doing when they gave them exclusive rights. Because Star Wars has been one of the biggest game franchises for decades now, and it can and has supported multiple releases per year, in large part because it's tapped into many different genres. There's everything from first-person shooters, to flight sims, to action-adventure games, to RPGs, pretty much something for everyone. And yet, EA never tried to capitalize on this. They didn't seem inclined to really branch out and give us not only many games, but many different types of games. And especially after an earnings call a couple years back now where Disney CEO Bob Iger said they were perfectly happy with their partnership with EA, it felt like we were going to have to accept EA control for the time being, and maybe for quite a while yet, maybe even past that 10-year mark. But thankfully, Disney woke up and has somehow ended their exclusive deal with EA early, and created or recreated Lucasfilm Games, which is what LucasArts was originally called back in the early days. However, they're not going to be an actual developer like LucasArts once was, but rather a sort of umbrella company that manages the license and works closely with developers, with Douglas Riley, the new VP of Lucasfilm Games, saying that we're looking to work with best-in-class teams that can make great games across all of our IP. We've got a team of professionals here at Lucasfilm Games who can work with the developers, shape the stories, shape the creative, shape the games to make them really resonate with fans and deliver across a breadth of platforms, genres, and experiences so that all of our fans can enjoy the IP that they know and love. Which all sounds great and makes me wonder what Disney was thinking when they shut down LucasArts originally. I don't know how they didn't look at their track record at decades of success and say, maybe we should go hands off here and keep letting them do their thing and not shut them down and give exclusive rights to EA of all companies. And though, no, this isn't quite as exciting as a full-fledged return of LucasArts, it still is very good news nonetheless, and I'm thrilled that EA has lost their chokehold on the franchise. And it only took a couple days after this announcement to learn that one of Lucasfilm Games' first joint ventures would be in creating a big story-driven open-world game with Ubisoft, though no other real details are known about it just yet. However, here, that doesn't mean EA is done with Star Wars quite yet. Just yesterday, in fact, EA CEO Andrew Wilson basically said the loss of exclusive rights changes nothing for them, that they still will be producing games, and just as many as they were always planning to produce, which, really hasn't seemed like that many. Either way here, though, not a big fan of EA. Hearing that they're sticking with Star Wars is also good news, because it won't affect the coming of a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, a game I really enjoyed. It also likely means yet another Battlefront game will be or is in the works, which, though I didn't play much of the previous one of Battlefront 2, I heard it ended up being a pretty great gaming experience, again in the long run. Not to mention here, competition is always a good thing, always. EA not having exclusive rights means others can challenge them on the Star Wars front, which hopefully means going forward they'll up their game, no pun intended, and that others coming in will know EA still has their hat in the ring, which means they'll bring their best as well. I think again, short of just full-on a return of LucasArts, this is the best news we could have ever hoped for. Okay, and before wrapping this up, I know I've talked before about doing a second channel geared more towards the gaming and collecting side of Star Wars, not to mention one that's a bit more fun and lighthearted at times, where I also talk about other things that interest me and hopefully will interest you as well. And I have actually started that second channel, I did it a while ago in fact, and do have some videos up over there. Anyway, with Star Wars games maybe hopefully coming back in a big way, I really want to try to commit and consistently upload to that channel, while obviously keeping consistent uploads going here as well, if not increasing uploads here and getting back to some of the other things I've done in the past on this channel, like fanfiction. Not to mention I still have my own version of the sequel trilogy in the works. It's coming along slowly but surely, and I do hope to have something to show very, very soon. In other words, I'm going to try and branch out a bit more and upload a bit more, and if you're interested in my second channel where I'm going to get more into, again, gaming and collecting, not to mention other random stuff like maybe even something like D&D from time to time, not to mention I may talk about other properties entirely, more so than I already do on this channel, and I'll also be doing a lot of videos with my fiance over there who is a huge Marvel fan and wants to make videos on that, again, more so than I do here on this channel. Anyway, before I keep rambling, if you are interested, a link to it will be in the description below, and probably in the comments as well. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about all this. Are you excited for the future of Star Wars games, more so now that EA has lost its chokehold? And what games are you maybe looking forward to seeing created? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.